How's it going, everyone? I'm Dono. This is How to Happy. In this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between growth and fixed mindsets. It's fairly likely that you've actually already heard of a growth or fixed mindset. This is a topic or idea that's been fairly popular recently. It's basically a framework for breaking down how you think about traits and talents, whether or not they can be influenced. For those who are unfamiliar with this topic, I'm going to jump into it a little bit more and kind of break it out for you. We'll start by defining what a growth mindset is, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. People who have a growth mindset feel that traits and characteristics and skills can all be developed through effort. So the more that you work on something, the better you're going to get at it. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone is capable of accomplishing everything or that there's no such thing as natural talent. That's not what it means. What it does mean is if you spend an extended period of time working on something, you're going to get better at it. And this applies in a broad range of contexts. So it could be something like throwing a baseball, which if you keep practicing, you're going to be getting better at. But it also applies to things like managing your temper, or being nicer to people, things that are a little bit more broad, but then you can get down to specifics and work on them. People with a growth mindset tend to take on challenges more proactively and see them as exciting. They also tend to grow more because they take on more stuff. The other thing is a growth mindset tends to lead to more happiness because people feel like they are more in control of what they're doing. Again, a growth mindset doesn't mean anyone can do anything. There's still strengths and weaknesses. Some people are good at some things, other people are not as good at them naturally. But what a growth mindset means is that if you continuously put in dedicated effort, you're going to get better at whatever it is you're working on. A fixed mindset is a belief system which basically says you have whatever skills or talents or traits that you're born with, and that's the end of it. People with this kind of mindset tend to do a lot more evaluating than actually, going out and working because they feel like putting in effort doesn't really make an impact. You're just born with whatever you have. On top of that, because people with a fixed mindset feel powerless to change things, it also makes them frustrated a lot of the time because they feel like they have only a little bit of control. So let me expand on a fixed mindset with an example. Someone with a fixed mindset might say something like, I'd love to go to Europe, but I'm just not the kind of person that travels. Although it's clear that they have the desire to travel, the way that their belief system is built, it's that in their core essence and being, they're not the kind of person who travels, so they can't do it. And that belief prevents them from ever going or looking into going. In a growth mindset, that same type of thought would look something like this. I would love to go to Europe, but I haven't traveled that much. I think it'd be an interesting challenge. The person still recognizes that they don't have the experience, but it's not a deterrent. It's actually something that they get excited about, the challenge of going there without really knowing that much about travel. Let's try a few shorter examples. I'm not good at math compared to I haven't studied math enough to be good at it. Or if I don't know the answer, I'm stupid compared to if I don't know the answer, I'll ask for help. Or I'm a fat person versus I can lose the weight if I make the right adjustments. Or I'm not good at tennis compared to I need to practice my tennis skills so I can improve. So again, you can see that one of these mindsets basically locks you into whatever position you're already in, while the other one gives you the opportunity to look for new challenges and take them on. It's a nice distinction to make, but what can you really do about it? Well, if you're really deeply in a fixed mindset, you probably don't even believe that your mindset can change, but I don't think that you would be watching this video if you're in that camp. So we'll go over a few ways that you can help shift kind of some of your fixed tendencies into growth tendencies. The best way that I know of to start shifting your mindset is to reflect on times where you've grown and then use those reflections to challenge some of your fixed mindset beliefs. Luckily, most of us have kind of a split view on the world, right? Some things we look at through a growth mindset, other things we look at as fixed. By using some of the growth mindset experiences, we can challenge and replace some of our fixed mindset experiences. One easy way to do this is take a little bit of time to think of something that you put in effort and you improved at. A fairly approachable example is learning how to play a sport or learning how to play an instrument. So if you've done that or other thing that you put in effort and built up expertise in, think about what that process was like. Then identify something else that you think is a little bit more concrete. Maybe you lose your temper a lot. People tend to think personality traits are a lot more rigid. So let's say you lose your temper a lot. and then start comparing and contrasting those two sets of ideas. So if we're talking about learning a sport, I want you to reflect on how long it took you to get good at the sport. How much practice and effort did you put in to reach the level of skill that you are at? On the other hand, I want you to put your other idea over here. So if it's, your temper, think about what would happen if you spent the same amount of time working on your temper. So if you spent 5 years learning to play a sport, compare that to your temper. If you spent 5 years trying to figure out ways to reduce your temper or to make it more manageable or to make it so that you have less blow-ups, what do you think would happen? If you worked on ways every single day to manage your temper and kept looking up new material all the time, do you think it would be a little bit easier to manage? And if you go back to the sport, that's kind of what happened. You put in dedicated, continuous effort, and over time, it changed. And when you frame that against something like your temper and working on it continuously for an extended period of time, it's just much harder to believe that there won't be any difference in the outcomes. All right, on top of that, there's a few other notable mindset tweaks that you can try to think about that may help you move from fixed to growth. Recognize that the brain is a muscle just like anything else. With enough training, you can kind of rebuild some of the habits and some of the structure. You might be familiar with different body types, right? So there's like the heavier one, the middle one, and like the skinny one. And your brain is kind of the same way. You might be preset to some dispositions, but with enough work, you can still shape it into a way that you feel really good about it. It's the same thing with your body. Like if you work out enough, you can still build a good figure if you understand what you're working with to start. You can also try creating goals, taking action, and tracking your progress. This will basically prove out to you over time how you're improving at certain skills. It may not be like monumental leaps in a day. It might take a month or years to improve in something, but by tracking your progress, you can see over time that you're getting better and prove to yourself that you're growing. You can also try taking some time to reflect on past accomplishments, things that were really difficult for you. By definition, you putting in effort made it so that you could accomplish whatever the thing was. The difficulty itself is what proves that you putting in effort made that accomplishment happen. Again, shifting from the fixed to the growth. One last thing is to accept that failure is part of the growth process. If you see people that are experts and think that they just have natural talent, it's because you're seeing the end process of a really long period of time for them working at something. You're not seeing all the hours where they made mistakes. So just know that growth happens through failure. That's how you learn from mistakes. Once you accept that failure is part of the process, you can start taking on a little bit more challenging tasks without as much fear. All right, let's move on to the exercise. So I've got number 1, identify one activity where you put in a lot of effort and saw your talents grow, or you saw a favorable outcome because of your effort. Number 2, identify an activity or trait that you think can't be changed. Number 3, compare and contrast the two. Use a long timeline and think about how realistic it is that this trait or skill wouldn't improve with constant and dedicated practice. Again, like we were talking about earlier, if you worked on something for 5 years every single day, do you really think, honestly, that there would be no change? Anyway, that's all I've got for this video. Hopefully it helps you shift from a fixed to a growth mindset. Beyond that, if you've got any questions, comments, topics you want me to cover, put them down in the box below, and I will see you next time. You can check out more content at howtohappy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos. We've also got a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you can check out. Reflect, take action, and enjoy life. See you next time.